So joining me in the studio to discuss this further is Jenny Ward, who is from the charity Lullaby, which works with families who've lost babies, and also Francine Allen, who is from the Royal College of Midwives. And welcome to you both. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Francine, can you just clarify, what is the advice that is given? Because things seem to go in and out of fashion fast. Is that fair?
They change all the time. Swaddling's a really very old term and involved bands and tightly binding the baby. Wrapping the baby is a more commonly used, and I'd say that has been for a very, very long time. And certainly swaddling, tight wrapping of the baby hasn't been seen since the 70s or 80s in this country. So it depends on how you use the terminology.
Right, and presumably the parents that you've dealt with who've lost a small child, they feel acutely, you know, is there anything I've done? What did I do wrong? What should I have done differently?
Yeah, absolutely. But when we're dealing with bereaved parents, the way that we're there to support them, obviously, and to say that we might have all this advice, but we still don't know what has caused the baby to die. So even if they haven't followed the advice fully, that doesn't mean to say that they've caused that baby's death. So that's something that we would definitely, you know, reiterate with parents.
Francine, just you said about this tight wrapping. What is the difference between, I don't know, swaddling, kind of in the old-fashioned sense, and just, you know, as you saw Kate Middleton coming out of hospital, that was a blanket wrapped round the baby?
She had it correctly done. She was keeping the baby warm. You can see the hat wasn't on. It's about thermoregulation. With a tight wrapping of a baby, doesn't allow the baby's arms to move. And that's often, if they're in a cot, it's the movement of the arms that's giving you the clue that they're waking up, they're wanting to be fed. Where a tightly wrapped baby, according to the research, they aren't able to give those clues. They sleep longer and they don't feed frequently. So they're missing out on feeds.
Right, so is the reason that swaddling is done to give mum an easy time of it a bit, you know, that the baby will sleep a bit longer if it's in that position?
Yes, it's warm. And traditionally it made it a nice tight shape. You didn't have warm places, very portable. Nowadays mothers would use slings far more, be close to the body, right temperature, but able to see the clues, where sometimes a baby's wrapped up tight in a cot, out of sight, out of mind. They're not really keeping an eye on baby's needs. And the mother and baby need to be close together. They need to be able to see each other to pass communications. The baby has only its cry as the means of communication.
And does the charity you work for have a view on how you should wrap up a baby?
Well, we are very much focused on SIDS and how to prevent SIDS.
SIDS?
And the sudden infant death syndrome.
Right,
so those are the babies that die suddenly and unexpectedly with no cause. And there's brilliant research which has reduced the rate in this country dramatically. So there's great advice out there. And in terms of swaddling, it's quite mixed. So as a charity, we're based on the research. So we say there isn't enough there for us to say don't do it, but there isn't anything there for us to be able to say this is something that's going to prevent SIDS.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because you know you've obviously looked at this research and it has cut dramatically sudden infant death syndrome. Yeah. But you're not able to see whether if a child is tightly wrapped, not tightly wrapped, on its side, on its stomach, whether that makes a difference.
We can in some parts of the research. We know that babies sleeping on their stomach are at much greater risk, and that's one of our key pieces of advice never to do. Don't sleep your baby on their side or their front ever. And in terms of swaddling, our advice is if a parent chooses to swaddle, don't swaddle the baby and then put them on their front, because you're then increasing the risk, as you are with all the other pieces of advice. So some pieces of advice are very clear. We still don't know the reason why for each of those. That's our key question, the why. We don't know the why, but we know they do make a difference. So that's why we give our advice out to parents.
I mean, this is the hopeless thing. I'm trying to remember when my kids were tiny, what we did. I've got a feeling we had a blanket that was tightly wrapped against their back, that they, you know, so that...
And on their side.
Yeah, and on their side. And now you're saying
no,
you don't...
don't do that.
No.
No, for a very long time we don't do that on the back. The problem is on the side. They can easily roll onto the front. They will be, as I describe the baby, as they wake up, moving their arms and giving the signals that they're waking up. And if they aren't able to do that, they may well just flip onto their side. So the back is the safest, and that has been proven to be the safest.
And back is safest, but do you sleep less well as a small child if you're on your back? And, you know, I mean, it's a natural instinct that the mother is exhausted, she wants to get the baby down, the baby eventually falls asleep, and you think, I shouldn't
Great.
need to feed for another 4 hours or whatever it is. And I just wonder whether there's, you know, if the baby's sleeping on its back, able to move its arms around, it will sleep less long and therefore maybe need feeding more regularly.
Well, when the baby's very small, remember when they're newborn, their stomach's only the size of a marble, so it needs topping up quite a lot. And so if you've got a tightly wrapped, hot baby, yes, they will sleep longer, but it's the reduction in the feeds that are important. You're missing out on those clues if the baby is there. Yes, for a newborn baby and a very new mum, it's an exhausting process.
I know both of you are UK-based, but is it very culturally specific?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Absolutely.
that. So there are certain cultures where they would just listen to what you're saying, Francine, and think, no, you must be joking.
No, my mother didn't do that, and that's what they'll say. But it's the interest of the research coming in. I think nobody's ever considered about the displacement of the hips and the possible damage for of arthritis later on. There's been 2 sets of research, and I think that's the new thing. I know it's nothing to do with SIDS, but it's something more to consider, and it is pretty amazing because I've never really considered that before. And so a new mother yet has another piece of information. What does she do? But it might be very important. And I suppose what came out of it is a baby has to move its muscles. Mum has been full of relaxant hormones, so the baby can come through the birth channel and deliver. It's in the baby's body, and then what happens is they're tightly bound. They can't move. You don't use your muscles, they don't develop. You're moulding the body into a different shape. So it's something else for a poor new mother to have to consider in all the advice that she's given by everybody.